If you're ready to experience more peace and joy in your life, if you want to feel more comfortable in your own skin, and if you're ready to discover and expand on your energetic gifts and personal power, you're in the right place. So here's your host, Kelly Sparta.
Welcome back to Spirit Guides. I'm your host, Kelly Sparta, transformational shaman, spiritual business coach. I am here as always on Wednesday Align episodes with my best friend in Boquete, Catherine Loranger. And we are here to talk about, are you beating yourself or beating yourself up? Are you comparing against yourself or comparing against others? So we're going to have that very serious topic today because, it's not okay. No beating yourself up. Let's just start with that. No beating yourself up. And before we get in further into the podcast, I just want to say thank you so much for liking and subscribing and rating. In fact, I want to read a listener review. This actually is from one of my students, but she wrote such a lovely review. I just wanted to read it to you. It says, spiritual lifeline in every episode. She says, I've listened to countless podcasts, but none resonate with me as deeply as Spirit Guides. No matter which episode I tune into, it always feels like the universe is speaking directly to me. It's relevant, timely, and exactly what I need to hear at that moment. The sheer breadth of the content they cover is astounding, yet it's delivered in such a way that every topic is easily digestible and profoundly impactful. Whether you're new to spiritual guidance or a seasoned traveler on your spiritual path, this podcast is a must listen. It's like having a wise friend who always knows just what you need. And that's from Amanda Beth. She goes by Amanda Beth 91. So
awesome. Awesome, Amanda.
Lovely 5-star review. Thank you. Thank you. We're at 24 reviews and all of them are 5 stars. You guys rock. Thank you so much for the reviews. We really appreciate them. They help us to get seen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify better because we're higher rated. So they deliver us out to more people. So you guys are the reason why we're getting noticed. And we really appreciate that. That's why we made New and Noteworthy a few months ago on Apple Podcasts.
Can I just quickly say something?
Yeah.
So it ties to today's topic, and we're talking about really kind of like comparison versus competition, right? Where we're maybe comparing our insides to other people's outsides. And so one of the things that can really shift things for you is when you start to celebrate the success of others. Because the universe, uni is one, right? The universe, this one energy, this one, and sorry, you heard the last episode, we batch record, so I'm sick, and my brain is a little bit fuzzier than normal. And so when you learn to celebrate the good in others, the universe reads that as, oh, they're ready for that same level of success. So when you, as an example, take the time to go and rate and review a podcast, you're vibrationally, you're at the frequency of, this is the good in my life as well, right? When you become that person who celebrates others, the universe sees that you're ready for the same level of celebration in your own life. So,
yes,
thanks for
all of it. Yes. When you, it's basically when you step into gratitude, right? It's when you're in gratitude, you are in a place where you are generating more things to be grateful about. What you focus on expands. We talk about this at the end of the podcast every time. What you focus on expands. What you intend is what you create. So choose wisely, right? It's when you focus on the gratitude that you have for the things around you, that's when you get more things to be grateful for, right? And that's just the nature of the beast. So awesome. Okay. So comparison versus, competition, or, competing with yourself versus competing with others. That's really what I want to say. You're always comparing if you're comparing yourself to other people, you are in a losing battle because you're comparing your insides to their outsides. And I promise you, their outsides are not the same as their insides. It's almost never the case that somebody's outsides are exactly the same as their insides. So what you're seeing is what they want you to see, not what's true for them. And so you're setting yourself up to lose in that battle of comparison, because you know how you feel on the inside. You know what you project to the outside world, but you usually don't feel what you project to the outside world, right? So you can't even compare what you're putting out to what they're putting out, because that isn't, you're not living that, you're putting it out. It's a mask you're putting on, right? Most of us have a mask that we put on where we're like, okay, this is what I'm going to tell people, even if I'm feeling this way, right? And so, that's part of hiding your authentic self, for one, which you don't want to be doing. And for two, is you're always in a losing battle with that. So the key is to looking at, how do I compete against myself in a way that's healthy and positive, right? Mm-hmm. Because competing against yourself can also be toxic if you're not careful, right? It can be, I didn't do better than last time and I suck and blah, 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 blah. Anytime you go into self-judgment, you're in resistance for moving forward. So I just want to say, self-judgment is not actually purposeful. We think that it's going to be like, if I beat myself up enough, then I won't be lazy and I won't be, I won't not do things and I won't suck at this or whatever. We have this like internal dynamic that says, beating yourself up is the way to be more successful. And that is absolutely not true. If you are, there's a big difference between saying, I suck because I did these things, and saying, these are the things that didn't go well in the last thing, and so I can learn from that, right? That's a very different energy, right? And so we want to do the analysis of how did we do and how do we improve and things like that, but we want to do it without the judgment attached, right?
Yeah, that curious witness.
Yeah. So, when you're in this process, you want to make sure that you are not in the judgment space. You want to make sure that you're not in the self-abuse dynamic, because, and an easy way to know this is whether you would say the same thing to somebody else that you cared about. If you externalize that internal dialogue and say, would I say this to somebody else? And if I did, would they continue to be my friend, or would they punch me in the face? Right? Then, if they would stop being your friend or punch you in the face, you're probably saying something to yourself that you probably should not say. Right. Yeah.
Well, and how does it make you feel, like what you're saying to yourself? Right. How do you feel after that? Yeah.
So, and, we all have stages, right? Like yesterday, I had a hard day. I did. I had a hard day. I got up and I was like in a good space for the first time in a long time, because I'd been sick for forever, right? And I'd been tired from doing the show and, all the stuff. And so I was feeling pretty good yesterday and the day before. And I got up in the morning and I was like, okay, I've got an open day on the calendar, which is so rare. And I love that. I'm like, what am I going to do? And I got into my head. And I was like, I don't know. What should I do? Can I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this other thing? And, the thing that I felt called to do, I couldn't do because I had somebody cleaning the air conditioner and I had the housekeeper here. And so I couldn't get on and record some videos, which is what I felt called to do because I just didn't have the quiet in the house to do it. But so then I started looking at other stuff and I'm like, nope, shouldn't do that. That's a whole new thing. And you're not allowed to start new things. I have a thing about that, right? I have way too many ideas and I go off half cocked and create all of these things and then I don't use them. And, it's my way of avoiding actually doing work that works. So,
that's a really good insight.
Yes. Yeah. So my assistant is actually empowered to tell me no at any time if I bring her a new project. I'm like, hey, we're going to do this. She's like, no, we're not doing that. I'm like, but I want to. And then I have to be able to convince her. And if I can't convince her, we're not doing it. And so, know these things about yourself and compensate accordingly. But I did it internally yesterday. So go me, right? But the fact that I was like, I couldn't get started. I kept going down this path and the other path and the other path. Just by noon, I had taken myself into this terrible state where I was, having I can't do anything right moment. And, I went to my husband and I was like, can you tell me why I rock, please? Because I have forgotten this morning and I know, but I I'm having a hard day. And he just looked at me and was like, oh my God, are you kidding? You're insane. You're awesome. Blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, okay. So I did that. I had some food. I stepped away. I came back and I spent the afternoon doing things that were actually productive. But, and I've been doing this stuff forever, right? But everybody has a bad day sometimes, and you learn the skills to get yourself out of it, right? And I recognized when I started taking this thing that was, completely out of the blue, not in my business plan, something that would just be entertaining to do, whatever, that I was in fritter mode. And that I was avoiding doing what I needed to do. And it took me 3 hours to get back on track. Now, in the past, that might've taken me 3 months, right? Yeah. 15 years ago, I might've gotten lost and then spent 3 months building out this new thing. And, then realizing I don't want to sell it. But I had fun building it. It's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
and it's noticing you have a choice, right? So it's recognizing that we all, as human beings, we're all going to have patterns about how we show up. And so over time, we're developing that awareness of that and a level of discernment, right? So we develop the skills to get ourselves out of it, to be more in alignment with how we want to be showing up. But then in those moments where we're I call it in the ditch, right? Kind of like, we're normally we're kind of like going down the road, and then all of a sudden we get in the ditch. Like, we've got a choice. Are we setting up a tent? Are we, changing our address? Are we like really hunkering down? Or in the noticing, are we just neutral with that? Or like, oh, okay, well, isn't that interesting, right? What would it be like to just be really playful and kind of fun with the noticing of it? And then when we're playful and fun with our energy, it just creates so much more space to be able to get back on to where we want to be and how we want to show up, right? Yeah. So when we go into the ditch, we've got a choice. Am I going to beat myself up, or am I just going to have self-compassion because, hey, I'm a human being. Good job, me.
Right. Yeah. And I didn't actually do either one of those things. I just went, I'm in the ditch. Honey, can you pull me out? I need a hand, And that's usually my answer, is like, if I can't find my belief in myself one day, I just borrow other people's belief in me. Right.
Yeah. And that's like powers of having a coach.
Yeah.
Right. Especially when you're up leveling your identity, when you're shifting how you want to show up in the world, like, you don't have that belief yet. So you need someone who can hold a powerful belief for you, so that when you need support, when you need a reminder, you've got someone who can give that to you.
Yeah. And it was interesting because I'll tell you the other thing that I noticed yesterday is that I wasn't in, so there are two different ways that this sort of ditch stuff shows up. And one of them is just, it's just a place where you sort of lose faith in yourself, right? And you forget that you trust the universe and all of that, right? And I want to point out that in the last episode, we talked about your client who went away on vacation and had no business in the pipeline. And I'm like, well, yeah, the universe didn't give you business in the pipeline because you were going on vacation. And it waited to give it to you until you got back, because they didn't want you to be in the middle of trying to onboard a bunch of people while you were on vacation, right? And of course that was going to happen. And, that was the thing that I was forgetting yesterday, is I was like, right, I've just finished the production. I've got a retreat coming up in a week and a half. And of course the universe isn't handing me clients right now because all of that, right? And I'm like, well, right. I told it that I wanted this. I literally have it blocked off on my calendar that I have I'm off, right? I took 4 days off before the retreat, the whole retreat, and then a few days off afterwards, right? So of course, I'm like, of course it's not showing up, right? This is not an anomaly in my business. This is what I've asked for. Hello, McFly, right? And I forgot that for a minute, right? I forgot. And it's not like there's like a panic about money or anything. It's just, I was like, well, it stopped working. Why? I was having a moment. And I'm like, no, it didn't stop working. You told it to stop. right?
Yeah.
And so there's all of this. And at the same time, the universe also provided me with this new assistant coming in who I onboarding today, who is all about the marketing side of things. And he's like all about getting people in the door. And I'm like, oh, good. I can let go of that now. I don't have to. I mean, I'm not going to let go of it entirely, but I can delegate it, right? And supervise it, right? So, these are all things that show up, and we forget that we've placed the order with the universe, and the universe is provided. And it's like, oh, yeah, right. Yes. Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah. And all of the things, right? So this is when you're looking at this stuff, you've got to remember what you asked for, right? And so I said there were two things, right? So one was you just get, lose faith in yourself, lose faith in the universe. But the other one, and this is what I was interested to see, is that when you're burned out, there's also another piece that shows up, which is this sense of overwhelm. And you start with this idea of what do I need to do? And the overwhelm just comes and just washes over you and weighs you down, and you just don't know what you need to do, right? That is when your adult has stepped out of the driver's seat of the bus, and your inner child has taken over the driver's seat. And the inner child is incapable of making these decisions because they're a child and they don't understand, right? And that happens because you're burned out. That happens because you're fried. And so that did not happen for me yesterday because I am not burned out. I have had sufficient downtime and time off, and I'm actually feeling energized to get my work happening and things like that. But I was like, oh, that didn't happen because I have been pretty fried because the production was so all encompassing. It really did kind of fry me. And so I was pleased to see that the confusion and the overwhelm did not show up. So that was a bonus on that end. So I can say, yes, I'm finally out of the burnout from the show, and I can step into the next layer of stuff. So, these are the sorts of things that you pay attention to as you go through. Because if I had felt that overwhelm and that confusion, I would have been like, oh, okay, I'm trying to get back to work too soon. I need to take some more downtime, right? And so, I am taking it easy because I'm going to go back into the retreat, and that's going to be a lot of work. And, one of my participants asked me, he's like, well, I hope this is going to be like a vacation for you too. I'm like, no, not a vacation for me.
Hello.
Not even close to a vacation for me. I'm holding the container for all of you to have a great time. This is not a vacation for me. No. No. I'm like, I love you for wanting it to be, but it is not. Yeah. So, but this is the piece around even self-comparison is to recognize what your triggers are, right? Recognize what your indicators are. So I know if I'm watching way too much TV, if I'm in my phone playing my games too much. In fact, I just deleted all of my games from my phone, and I'm canceling a bunch of subscriptions from my television stuff. And I'm like, nope, we're going to have a life. We're not going to just exist, right? We're going to have a life. We're going to go out and do things. We're going to, do some crafts at home. We're going to make some things. We're going to do things with the energy we have now, because the TV becomes the thing when I'm burned out, because that's all I have energy for, is to let the TV watch me. Right. And that's it. So when I don't have any energy left at the end of the day, that says that I'm overdoing it. Right. So a lot of people are taught to do this in the workforce. They just, leave it all on the field. Right. It's like, if you come home, if you're working an 8-hour day, we're up for 16 hours a day. If you're working an 8-hour day and you have zero energy left at the end of the day, you gave too much energy to your work. Right. That's the nature of the beast, because you've got 16 hours. You need energy for all of it. So a lot of days I quit at 3. I'm just like, I'm done. I just stop working at 3. I'm just like, That's why I don't tend to make late appointments in my calendar, because at 3:00 I'm done.
No.
Yeah. So I've been sort of babbling here, so I will shut up and let you talk now.
Yeah. I think just thinking about that in the ditch idea, and one of the things that I see happen as well is when we are in the conscious creation and identity shift, we're right. And if you're listening to this podcast, like that's what you're all about. You're about, I want something more for my life. And high five to you, because we're actually designed for that. Like we're meant to grow as beings on this planet. We came here on this spiritual experience, or this human experience, to grow and to learn and develop, right? And so when we listen to that yearning, that's a high five thing. So we're in this conscious growth experience, right? And we all have existing patterns or comfort zone or identity about how we have learned to show up in our lives. And so one of the ways that we can go into the ditch is when we're in that growth, opportunity, and the existing structures are going to fight for their survival. They're going to try to put you in the ditch, right? That's when your old stuff comes up, your triggers, your previous ways of being, and you find yourself in the ditch, and you've unpacked, you've got a postal code, switched your phone, and that's just part of the process. So knowing that if you're finding yourself in the ditch, like that's okay, right? It's the noticing, and know that you're going to go into the ditch again, and you're going to notice a little bit quicker, and you're going to develop the skills to get yourself out of it. And so kind of coming back to our topic of, am I beating myself up, or I can't remember exactly what we called this one, but basically it's that comparison versus competition kind of idea, or comparison and competition. And so when we are looking at the external reality or projected reality of another person, we don't know, like you said, Kelly, we don't know what's going on inside. We don't know what their journey was, right? We might see someone, especially in business, having the results that we would love, and we don't know if they took 20 years to get there or 10 years to get there, right? And we're maybe on I don't know, year 1 or 2. So we're not comparing apples to apples. We don't know what their life experience has been. And so,
Yeah, we also don't know what their profit margin is.
yeah,
They may be bringing in freak tons of cash, but if they have nothing left, you don't know that because you don't see their bottom line, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So when we start to, or when we're in that pattern of comparing ourselves to other people, we want to just start to notice it, right? Because in the noticing, that's where we have ultimate choice, is when we're aware and we can notice. And so when we notice it, what I do is I have my clients do a pattern interrupt. Can't remember if I've shared this before, but basically there's we all have a pattern about how we're showing up. So when we notice it, when we do a pattern interrupt, it kind of is like, oh, right? It's like, that happens internally. So it's like a high five, pat on the head, shimmy, and then fireworks, right? And so what that does is it's interrupting the pattern that's been running the show up until now. It's inviting in play. It's physically shifting our energy, and it's lightening up the situation, right? Because none of us are getting out of here alive. Spoiler alert. So then once we've done that pattern interrupt, it's providing this brand new energy to choose. So when we notice we're comparing ourselves to other people, we do a pattern interrupt, we high five ourselves for noticing, and then we ask the question, how would I love to show up here? How does the highest version of me show up here, right? How do I actually support myself in my growth, in my development? And one of the most powerful things we can do is to calibrate our energy. And we talked at the beginning of the episode about how when we celebrate the success of others, the universe sees that we're then a match. And again, sorry for the brain cold, sick, it's happening here. But when we celebrate the success of others, the universe is seeing that we're a vibrational match for that same success, right? So when we can genuinely get ourselves happy, excited for that other person, or we're genuinely congratulating them, right? We've then shifted our frequency, our energy, to be a match for that experience in our own life. And again, it's not going to be the exact same experience because we're not the exact same person. So when you notice that, if you're in that comparison competition mindset experience, notice it, pattern interrupt, and then get yourself into that frequency of authentic celebration for them, right? And so one of the other things I want to say when we're, kind of taking action, when we're growing ourselves, when we're maybe beating ourselves up again, we want to do the same thing, we pattern interrupt and shift our frequency, is when we're taking action or when we're making a move, we want to be 100% cognizant of our energy. The most important thing is the frequency with which you are taking that action or you're thinking about something. So if you notice, okay, I'm, beating myself up here, but I'm going to beat myself up into taking action, then any action that you're taking has the frequency of I suck, or I'm a loser, or I'm not good enough, or I can't do this. And if you think about the energy and the action that you're taking as seeds that you're planting in the energetic frequency of the universe, if you're planting seeds of I suck, you're going to harvest seeds of I suck, right? So you notice it and you shift your energy. So we're not talking about a spiritual bypass here. We're not talking about high vibes only. We're talking about an authentic vibrational shift where you're connected to the version of you and your vision, how they think, how they feel, how they show up, how they talk to themselves, how they celebrate others. And then and only then do you take action. And so here's the thing, is that this is going to take some work and some practice. What tends to happen is that you experience that shift in frequency for like a nanosecond because you haven't hardwired it yet. Your nervous system doesn't know what to do with this. Your body doesn't know what to do with this. Your brain doesn't have the neural pathways yet. So it's like learning to ride a bike. It's a constant practice, getting into the frequency of the energy and just and I do this with my clients who learn how to breathe, to integrate it to the nervous system of the body. And then you're going to shift out of it and you celebrate yourself for just being in it for a nanosecond, right? Because prior to then, you couldn't even experience it. And then over time, you get more fluent in calibrating that state of will. And so then you learn how to be in that frequency and then you take the action. And so you don't get into the frequency, take the action, and then dip yourself down into kind of like I suck again, right? Because then you're planting I suck seeds. You want to like plant I'm amazing seeds. You want to be planting this is my good too seeds. You want to be planting I am the person who seeds.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will tell you that when I came out of the ditch yesterday and I went over to my LinkedIn where I'd been doing some automated outreach, there were potential clients sitting there waiting for me to talk to, but I hadn't thought to do that earlier in the day, right? I was just because I wasn't in that vibration, right? When I got back into the right vibration, go figure, I was right on the right path to be getting some business in the door in the near future. So, all of these things are the reasons why, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, when I went into my email, there was some more opportunities that came in and I was like, okay. Yeah. Somebody reached out to me who I had reached out to like, I don't know, two months ago. And he reached out and said, hey, I'm so sorry. I lamed out here. Anytime you want to be on my podcast, just sign up here. And I'm like, okay. So now I'm going to be on a podcast. Right. So all of these things. Right. Mm-hmm. So, it's very much about the vibration change. Right.
All about the vibration.
Yeah.
Everything is energy.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they've actually started proving that in science these days with the entangled particle, quantum entanglement. Yeah. And all of that. They've really started to prove what we in spirituality have known for a long time. We're sitting here going, duh. And they're going, hey, look. And we're like, hello, McFly. Right. Of course. Right. But it's always fun to watch science catch up to what metaphysics has known for a while. But I love tracking the science though. It just makes me happy. Yeah.
My masculine brain likes it.
That's right. Yes, the masculine brain.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's good for today. So thanks again for liking, subscribing and sharing. And remember that what you focus on is what expands, as we've been talking about. And what you intend is what you create. So choose wisely.
So that's it for today's episode of Spirit Guides Podcast. Head on over to iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. Every week, one lucky listener who subscribes and posts a review on iTunes will be entered into a drawing for a $10,000 value grand prize and a private reading with Kelle Sparta herself. Be sure to head on over to spiritguidespodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Kelle's gift and join us on the next episode.